this is your captain speaking. There's some fog in London right now, so we're going to have to land in Dublin.
That's the key. I mean, if we all remember from the great early 2000s documentary Shaun of the Dead. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Retro Rents Retro Gaming Podcast. It is episode 54, and I am Al.
I'm Nick.
Abbey Road. I want to go to Abbey Road. Yes, we are back. It has been a couple weeks, and if you hadn't gotten that hint, if you remember our last episode, Nick had talked about a trip that he was going to be taking to the UK and to
Indeed.
go to Abbey Road. So, let's start there. Now, Nick, let's get a little recap. What was the trip for?
So it was exactly that. So I'd kickstarted a album for Christopher Tin, and if you're not familiar with him, you probably are familiar with his work. He did the Baba Yetu song for Civilization 4.
One of the best
more
songs,
recently,
I think.
yes,
one of the best songs ever written.
Indeed. And more recently, Civilization 6, the song I'm butchering the name. Song D something. Where's my phone?
So I probably said this in the last episode. When I played Civ 6, I was like, God damn, this song is just as fucking good. And now it makes sense.
Now it makes sense. Yeah, same artist.
Wow.
If I can find it here. Yeah. Song D, that's right. Song di Volare. Basically it's designed to, evoke, the dawn of flight and, journey through flight type of thing.
Beautiful.
And he basically, this album is to that song. So I believe Baba Yetu was part of Calling All Dawns. So he made an album to kind of complement Baba Yetu.
Right.
And this newest one, what did he call it? Oh, it's man, like it's all like leaking out of my head now. Now I got to think about it. And I should go get the score because it's all there. But
you got a copy of the score with it too.
Oh yeah. So I'll get into the whole thing here.
Wow.
But yeah.
I'm sorry. I just knowing you as long as I have, I just see you being as like giddy as you were at 6 years old at Christmas.
Oh, believe me. And you can see some. I think I threw some of it on Twitter. I'm working on getting all the photos off my 360 camera, off from that I was able to take in Abbey Road itself. But yeah, so
awesome,
the new album is what he's been recording now. This is the second session. He'd already recorded back in July. So there was 2 recording sessions. One was back in July, but I was moving during that point, so I wasn't able to go then.
Right.
But the second session was here in February. I was like, yeah, I'll go for that one. Hopefully by that point I'll have moved. And sure enough, everything's all everything's all gravy. And so it was a winter trip to the UK. Primarily for that. So it was 2 weeks ago now, I guess. Get out. I take a red eye. So obviously UK is 5 hours ahead of us. So I knew I was gonna be in trouble because I don't like to get up in the morning. I am not a morning person.
Oh, you and me both.
Like I could force myself up, but I knew I was going to be hurting. So
have kids. You still get to not be a morning person. You just no longer have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you just got to get up and go.
Yeah.
So like the thing is, I've cycled my schedule before, like kind of taking my pro tips from having worked the night shift. Granted, that's a complete like 12-hour flip on that thing. But similar techniques. So it's like, basically in the week leading up, I started setting my alarm earlier and earlier and earlier throughout the week. Right. That helped. And then I took the red eye. So basically got on the plane and went, I like ran around all day. So I was actually pretty tired by the time I got on the plane.
Yeah.
And again, worked to the advantage, like had my, I had a little sleeping mask, to put over my eyes so I wouldn't see anything, and, put on my noise canceling headphones and boom, out like a light. Obviously sleeping on a plane, even if you're, decent at it, it's not restful sleep because it's not a bed. You're just kind of like, sprawled out. Luckily I won the seat lotto, so no one was in my row. So I was able to just kind of like sprawl out and, just like zonk out, which is very nice.
Bastard. Yeah,
I know, right?
Normally I require drugs from my doctor, totally legal. But, yeah,
and it's a what was it? I think it was a 7-hour flight. So it was like just barely enough to get like an okay night's sleep. But again, it's not restful on a plane by any means. So we're rolling in, and it's I think it was 10 a.m. local time.
Only 7 hours?
Yeah, it's only 7 hours to London. From Philly.
I left Allentown at 11:30 in the morning when I flew out to San Francisco. Granted, I had a 2-hour layover in Detroit, and I'm sure that helps because I can get up and walk around. But I didn't get to San Fran until about 9:30 that night.
Yeah, I believe it. It's like, if you're taking connecting flights, like that just adds so much time to your West Coast flight.
That just makes me more open to getting my passport.
and I'll get into a little bit of London too, but we're coming in. It's about 10 local time, and the captain comes over the intercom's like, hold on, let me. This is your captain speaking. There's some fog in London right now, so we're going to have to land in Dublin. So we're
that might be the funniest fucking thing you've ever done in this cast.
So we land in Dublin, and the thing is, we can't get out of the plane. So, legal reasons and customs, et cetera, is like we're stuck on the plane, waiting for London fog to clear. And I'm sitting, and here I am sitting here like, they also added like apparently the plane wasn't equipped for fog, or flying through the fog, I guess. And I'm sitting there asking the questions like, London's known for its fog. Why doesn't this plane have fog stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad we're like, landing someplace safe, but at the same time, it's like, shouldn't this plane have it if it's going to London? Question mark.
That's funny, man.
But anyway, we're there about 2 hours now. Fortunately, we still had all like the in-flight entertainment and all that kind of stuff available. So it's just like popped on a movie and. It was able to ride it out. I should have slept, but by that point I was up and I was getting excited because
oh yeah,
this is now Wednesday morning essentially. So we get in about 2 hours later, and it worked to my advantage because that means when I got to my hotel I was able to like immediately check in because the thought was I would get there early enough I could drop off my bags and then maybe like wander around London for a couple hours and then get back to the hotel, because that evening we were meeting with Christopher and some of the other backers at a nice little dinner get together.
Oh, you actually got to chill with him?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Holy crap!
So anyway, get to the able to check in. I basically at that point just kind of like unwinding, and then I freshen up, take a nice shower, and then go to do the dinner thing. That was awesome. There was about I think 10 or so backers off the top of my head that were there. I was actually surprised at the number. I was expecting it to be less, but
that's really cool though. You had a group that you could kind of bond with, and that are going to obviously be as enthusiastic about it as you are.
Oh yeah, and they're from I say from all over the place. We had one guy who won the distance was from Australia. So one guy flew all the way from Australia to come to the recording.
Now I have a coworker at my current job who flew to Australia from the UK, and in his own words, lives in the UK. It was fucking hell, and I'll never fucking do that shit again. Yeah, no, man, it's awesome. Now, was that your first time in London?
Surprisingly, well, I should say yes and no, because back in 2003, I passed through Heathrow, the international terminal, on my way to India.
Yeah,
but I never left the terminal. Like it was just a layover, and we never left the terminal. So technically, I never really landed in London, so to speak. Never went through customs, but I was there, on terra firma, back in 2003.
Now, for those who do not stalk Nick or I on a regular basis for the past 15 years. 17 years. That was actually the first time you and I met, was when you got home from your trip from New Delhi and came to work where I was working my internship, the company your dad ran at the time.
Yep.
So that was technically the last time you were in London. But this was your first time really kind of walking around there. That's really cool.
Yeah, and first time experiencing the city, and I was really surprised because it's a city of 10 million people, and it never really felt like that. I mean, it felt like a city. Like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like there was no one there, but it wasn't like the levels of New York City where there's just been in New people York everywhere. Yeah, like you feel like you're not necessarily, but close to it, like shoulder to shoulder, and there's just people everywhere. Cars are everywhere. I mean, you think Broadway, it's like 5 lanes long or wide, and just stuffed to the gills with cars. That's
fascinating. So it's not like that.
Yeah, it was never really like that. Like the streets maybe at points got maybe 4 lanes wide, but there was always like a divider in the middle, and it was never like super bumper to bumper. I always found it curious, but ton of public transportation, and that's like the easiest part of getting around.
That's the key. I mean, if we all remember from the great early 2000s documentary Shaun of the Dead, the character David says, I don't see the point of owning a car in London. And that actually, from what you're telling me now, makes a lot of sense. Just based on a few expatriates that I'm now friends with, basically said that they took public transportation. It was great, and you could get basically anywhere you needed to go. So
that is absolute truth. I mean, starting even with the airport, like there's much like if you ever been to Seattle, like the SeaTac goes from the airport right to the city. Same thing with Heathrow to London. Like you get right on the underground, and you take it. It was about like an hour drive into central London, where my hotel was, or I say drive, but ride. And yeah, it was like the easiest thing. Everything's on what's called an Oyster card. So you can I actually pre-ordered it and had it shipped to me prior to, going there. So I didn't even have to mess with stuff, in the terminal.
You are the best prepper I know. I'm not even gonna fucking lie. I'm not surprised.
And it's basically a contactless card, and if you've had any kind of that kind of stuff here in the States, it's very easy. You just slap it down, boom, gates open, you're in, you're good to go, and you can always top it off if you need to. But yeah, it works on the underground, it works on the buses, and I think there's like a ferry because obviously the Thames River goes up the middle. They even have ferry taxis essentially.
So how did the London Underground compare to the fine DC Metro subway that we took back in the day?
If you've been to multiple cities, each city's metro has its own quirks and kind of like, I don't know.
It sure does.
Flora and fauna type of thing. Surprisingly, the underground wasn't too different than I don't know. It didn't smell, so there wasn't a smell. So it wasn't like Boston or New York, which that has a
it didn't have that. It didn't have that exquisite smell of mixed piss.
Yeah, but it did feel old.
Okay.
I think the cars were from the 70s right now, but like you're rolling into the stations, and you could just tell like this was built on the back of something very, very old. I mean, that goes without saying for the entire city, really.
Well, yeah, that's like old city under there.
Yeah, but it was very functional. The thing I found curious, you always hear the phrase "mind the gap," is a very British thing.
Mind the gap.
Yeah, mind the gap. That is a very factual truth on the underground. Like, because almost every metro here in the U.S., it's very much the train rolls up and it's always uniform with the platform, and maybe like only you might have like an inch or something between the car and the platform itself, right?
Yeah.
The underground, you could be stepping up, like a stair step or down a stair step, or over 6 inches worth of gap between the train and the platform.
That would not work for me.
Every station was different.
My half crippled ass would be the one slowing everybody down because I have to crawl up it like a goddamn baby.
and now, fortunately, like when you get into central London, everything starts to get a little more even. I think probably because it's probably gone through more modernization. But when you're on the more suburban outer parts of London, like the platforms all over the place, and it was one of those like strange curiosities I noticed while traveling.
That's interesting. One of the things I noticed, just looking at your pictures that you posted, speaking of retro, one of my favorite things, and you know this because you've known me for years, I love anything medieval. And
sure,
the castle pictures that you got, and actually, it just shows how well he knows me. We should be married. He tags me in a picture in the middle of your trip, and you were like, "Oh, you'd have a field day here," and it was the like Arms and Armaments Museum.
Yeah, So that was the Tower of London.
Oh my God, I could have spent a week there.
Such a beautiful grounds to be on.
It was incredible, man. The incredible pictures.
Yeah, and I think that particular, it was basically the central castle. I think it's called the White Castle, I think is what it's called.
Yeah. Yep.
And it houses a ton of and there's like periods of armor too. Like, it's like you're going through it, like the very earliest pieces of armor up to, I think late 18th century or so, when it started to become more ceremonial in nature. Sure. When, firearms started beat armor.
Yeah, and what got me though is like some of the pictures. You took a picture of the one tower, and the first thought that comes into my mind as a morbid historian fan is like, wow, the twin princes died in those walls.
Mm-hmm.
Richard III and the heirs that he was supposed to take care of, mysteriously died there. And then you think like the Tower of London was the prison for high-profile criminals. Robert the Bruce's father was in prison there for a while. King David, before he was king, was in prison there for a while. Of Scotland. Sorry, I'm getting people here. Nobody reads as much as I do when they're bored and looking at Wiki. But it blows my mind because like I sit there and like all the people I know, like I know you can walk on those grounds the same as I would, and you can immediately feel that there is 100 years of history, probably 1,000 footsteps on the exact spot that you were stepping.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, it's just awesome, man. Like you posted some amazing pictures on Facebook, some amazing pictures on Twitter, but now we drive the car to the meat of it. So another thing listeners may not know, thanks to my dad mainly when I was a little wee babe, I am a big Beatles fan. And so the first question I have to ask you, considering your destination, did you walk the crosswalk with your 10 pals? And who was John, Paul, George, and Ringo?
So I did walk the crosswalk, but it was just by myself. So, and for those who know the true history, that is an active road. That's not like some
did
like
you almost get hit by a car?
Yeah, so you're literally trying to run across the crosswalk between traffic, and I had like a little I had my 360 camera, so I'm still getting the photos off that thing. But yeah, I do have a picture of that, of me crossing the famous Beatles crosswalk on Abbey Road.
And the only
in the fog in the morning.
The only reason I know that it is a busy crosswalk is because the other thing I've obsessed over, aside from history, is the behind the scenes on the Lord of the Rings movies. Peter Jackson, Richard Taylor, and two of the Rick Porras and one other of the production people decided to replicate the Beatles photograph, and it took them about 7 takes because they wanted to try to make it look stylish and get the footsteps right, except they almost got hit by cars. Like they'd be doing it and they were like half running and half walking across the crosswalk. So it's just but it's so cool, man. I'm so happy you like got to do that. Like That's wild. So, all right, so let's go to the meat of it. It's the day of you going into Abbey Road with the composer of the main themes for Civilization 5 and Civilization 6. Take us through it.
Yeah, so get up, I say early, but it was more like, it's like, jet lag was still hitting me hard. So, I get up, enough time to like run to basically their equivalent of the Starbucks. It's called Pret Manger. I'm probably butchering it, I'm sure. Get my breakfast sandwich and get on the bus to take me to Abbey Road. Which again, it allows me to kind of like see a little bit of the city, on the nice, the traditional double decker. So I get up on the second one, just kind of walk, take about a half-hour ride from the hotel to Abbey Road. And this is another thing, like when you're in London and even like going through the parts of London, there are things that you thought were stereotypical from like the movies, and it's truth. One of the things that stood out was like the stove pot pipes, or chimneys rather.
Right.
You think like, Mary Poppins and, like those type of chimneys. Like, no, that's real. That is London.
That's so cool.
And as you approach Abbey Road, you're getting into a very residential sector. It's not in an industry part of the city. It's actually
I never knew that.
And there are signs like actually at Abbey Road where it says like, when you're inside the building as you're leaving, it'll say like, please be quiet. You're in a residential neighborhood, and it hits you. It's like, you're right. Like people live around now. These are like multi-million-dollar, like probably penthouse,
I was gonna say it's
style.
Expensive.
Oh yeah, like it had to be like it was very the uppity part of town, but it's a residential area, so it didn't have like the kind of the usual trappings of the more inner parts of the city or any kind of more commercial stuff. Like there's almost nothing around it. It's very unassuming is the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's really
and they have a huge wall, fence and wall fence in front where I think people can actually sign. I didn't want to be signing like suddenly pulled over by a Bobby. It's like, well, what are you graffitiing? But like I think you can actually write your name on the wall. And
be that ugly American tourist.
yeah, exactly. It's like I'm not going to be that American tourist that gets does a boo boo. I think you could write on the wall, but I didn't want to find out.
It's like the retro rents were here. I'm just fucking saying.
Maybe next time I go to London, so I'll actually do that. Because I was more, like I got there and it was about a half hour before, we were supposed to be there. And I wanted to get there a little early enough to be able to do the crosswalk, just walk around a little bit.
Like I said, folks, he's a prepper.
Exactly. And the truck was already there unloading all the orchestra stuff.
Oh, cool.
But we get in and again, it's very unassuming. You're talking, I don't know, I'll use your house as size as an example. You'll know it, obviously. Our listeners won't really know it, but you think a nice nice urban home, and it is about that length. Now, granted, it was marked on both sides by other buildings, very close. With it's still in the city. It's not out in nowhere,
right?
But it's a very again, it's because it's so unassuming. It's like it looks like a regular building. And you're like, is this really the size? But you get in and and suddenly you feel like you're stepping into like, I'm going to continue my British terminology here, the TARDIS and, Doctor Who, because it's a lot bigger on the inside.
No kidding. So
just
to on the size of the studio there, just to kind of hit the pause button for a second. Again, Nick and I, we mentioned before, we used to be in a band and we actually recorded in a recording studio. So how, I saw the picture of the booth. The booth was obviously much more high-tech. Than the one at Red
absolutely
Rock.
Massive.
So what would you say, just in comparison of like 2 times the size, 3 times the size, how big was Abbey Road in comparison to Red Rock?
So to put in perspective, basically it's like, we sign in, there's like, like a, I don't want to demean it, but it's like rental cop at the desk type of thing. He's sign in, and you're gonna. He points down the hallway. It's like you're gonna go down the hallway, down the stairs, take a left, take a right, and you're like, oh my goodness, like where are we going? and I actually love the fact that we had to do this because it's basically Studio One, which is the biggest one they have.
Oh my God.
And if you've seen the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes where they're recording the orchestra, they recorded there. Star Wars recorded there.
Yeah, dude, that's like the biggest studio in Abbey Road, like as far as history goes. You were in Studio One?
Studio One.
Oh my God.
Which is in basically the very back of the thing. So as a result, we have to walk past all the other studios along the way, which is fantastic because you're walking, like the first set of hallways is basically a whole bunch of like smaller recording booths. Like those were the size of Red Rock. And you remember, more or less how big that was.
Yeah.
Like, there were about 3 of those on the way to the main intersection. And then, there's some like side offices. So obviously, it's, because it's a big studio and it works a lot with the movie industry, you could see like this is editing room 1, 2, 3, it's set up so they can not only record the orchestra, but they could actually start editing and putting it to film in those places. And they even had some very old equipment in the hallways of like old tape reels for not only film, but even recording, and just like old mixer boards, things like that, just, like part of their old history that I guess either they couldn't get rid of or because it wasn't really just set up as necessarily like, kind of museum-esque display, but at the same time, it kind of felt like that.
Yeah, like stuff on the walls. A lot of bigger studios do that to show off who recorded here. And all that.
Yeah, because who's going to take this stuff anyway, type of thing. So they just kind of like leave the cool stuff hanging around, and it's like don't touch or whatever. But so anyway, we go down there, down the hallway, down a set of stairs, and then another set of hallways. And meanwhile, we're also going past not only the other smaller studios, but like all these posters that are signed of all the other things. There's a Lord of the Rings one.
Yeah, that's right.
That was signed.
That's right. Howard Shore. They did the Two Towers mix there.
Yeah, exactly. So like all the stuff that's basically been recorded there, are on the walls, which kind of, again, it lends itself to additional history of like, they may not necessarily advertise it was recorded there, but like, oh, it's like, I recognize this movie, like almost all the Marvel stuff had been recorded there.
Oh yeah. Howard Shore was the 4th guy in the Abbey Road photo.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And funny enough, like, talking with the composer, apparently, like, Disney just rents out Abbey Road non-discriminately. Like, they actually had to fight for, well, I say fight, but basically it's like say, hey, can we show up and record this day? And Disney, basically it was up to Disney to say yes or no. And more or less, I guess what they do is they just literally block Abbey Road, whether they need it or not. And now fortunately, I guess it was like case of like, we're not recording that day. Go ahead and do your stuff. So it's like,
I've heard that. That's interesting that you've literally confirmed that. I've heard that before, where they pretty much block it off like almost indefinitely. Yeah. Just because when it comes time for them to record and they have all the resources to do it, they have to just go.
Yeah, and exactly.
They can't reschedule. They can't do anything. So they have to have a spot. And I had heard that Abbey Road was that place, but it's one of those, like, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to really hear that confirmed. That's actually really cool. Just shows how much
I wouldn't be surprised if they book multiple places, but yeah, like, definitely, like, Abbey Road is definitely one of those places that they just put down money and they permanently book it. And then,
how much you think that costs?
Obviously
like
other people.
$200 a month? How much? I was gonna say, how much do you think that runs Disney? Like $100, $200 a month?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's a good question.
Perhaps $250.
Because I think like a tentative cost, more or less, it's about $750,000 to get the studio and the orchestra just for like what we did.
Wow.
But just the studio, just like because I mean the studio
like
doesn't
bring your own shit kind of thing and.
Yeah, like because the studio and whatever you bring in to record, whoever you bring in to record are totally separate. So, it's not like you get the Abbey Road Studios and suddenly you get the orchestra. No, those are two separate entities.
Wow.
So yeah, like the fact that granted it's Disney, they can throw money at whatever they want, but yeah, again, it was just one of those like interesting little quirks that came out of like
That's
talking
really cool.
with the composer and even like some of the personnel within Abbey Road, because they're just talking and talking shop and whatnot.
Sure, yeah.
And but yeah, so anyway, we get in there. It's around now 9:30 in the morning, and the orchestra's starting to form. And if you've seen it, like it's really hard to get pictures of the whole room, because usually, like when you see behind the scenes, it's always the camera facing out of like the control room, or there's actually a upper deck balcony. And so what had happened was they set up all the chairs for us in that upper deck balcony inside the studio itself. When I share the pictures, you'll actually be able to see like where we were able to sit. But we're basically like right above the control room inside the Studio One.
Wow. So you were actually able to take pictures then. I thought you were sneaking them.
Oh, no. Like, well, yeah, that was the thing. Like they totally, like his assistant, and even like there's signs everywhere, like no pictures in the public area. But I think that's because I think they actually do tours, because there's also like a little store that I actually didn't, I'm kicking myself for not doing. But yeah, there was a store like right next to Abbey Road. It's like the Abbey Road Studio store, but I think they run like tours when nothing's absolutely nothing's happening, so they can still make money, and it's like the side hustle essentially for tourists. I think that those plaques were more for that, because I was able to like sneak pictures in the hallway and no one was like necessarily yelling at me, but I was like still discreet about it. But once we were in, like the rule was obviously nothing that made noise, because like time is money when you're recording, because basically they sit down and they're sight reading and they're going.
Oh yeah, and it's so mic'd up in there, like it'll pick up a beep from a camera.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like nothing with noise. So, but some of us were just making very discreet pictures with like our phone, making sure those weren't making noise. So you could at least do that, and then when between sessions, when the orchestra had a break or something, we were allowed to like walk around and take more non-discrete pictures, if you will. So yeah, I was actually able to get quite a bit, and I was quite happy with that. So again, I'm getting those off, and I'll share those shortly on the Facebook page, and blast it out on Twitter so you guys can see.
Yeah, definitely. I would say definitely put that on the save point, because when I drop this episode, I'm sure everybody will want to see that.
Oh sure, yeah. Well, maybe I'll do it tonight and send you the stuff.
All right, yeah, that'd be great.
But yeah, so anyway, the orchestra starts up, and man, like as with any live performance, you always know that like it's so much better than listening to the recording. Recording's gonna be good, don't get me wrong, but it's like it's like why do we go to live concerts? It's like you just feel the raw power of the orchestra or the band or your favorite performer.
Yeah,
and being in the same room, it's just like it hits you right away, and it's like, oh man.
And I would argue with an orchestra, it's a different kind of energy. And if you've never done that, like if there's an orchestra coming around playing something you're remotely interested in, like video games live, or a Star Wars, even, obviously it probably won't be John Williams. Nick got to see him, by the way. But if you do get to see something like that done by an orchestra, I can't recommend it enough. Like the energy of that, just when they like the tuning. I'm sorry, the tuning fucking just goes right to my soul. I love that thing. I don't know why. Like it drives some people up a wall, but to me, that just gets me like, oh yeah, here comes fucking Christmas.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it was the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra.
Oh my
playing.
god!
And that's the other thing. Like these people are at the top of their craft, and you're just watching them. I think they had like done one session prior with the composer, like previous in the week, to do like just go over things, but more or less they're still kind of basically sight reading the thing, and they're just like boom, nail it, it's just utterly incredible, and the process is pretty cool. I had gone through a recording process in my college days, so I was kind of semi familiar with like how things happen, but for those who may not understand, when it comes to making an album, basically from anything from like your favorite rock band to the orchestra as well, it's different than probably what you think.
Yeah,
because what will happen?
Kind of instrument, like a certain kind of instrument records at once. You don't basically have everything going at once. Like when we recorded, like Charlie was doing his guitar track separately, and like my vocals were done kind of separately. It wasn't done all at once.
Right. And yeah, it's very similar with orchestra. More or less, like you'll have the whole orchestra playing together, and what'll happen is it's called a bed. So they'll play it once through the entire time, do it all the way through and record it, and then what'll happen is they'll start taking chunks and like, okay, let's do this bar section and this bar section, and what'll happen is they'll end up taking like the very best performance, even though like granted, I'd say retired musician, but it's like, I'm musically inclined, so I'm able to like pick on most stuff, but it's like, to me, like they're just playing like absolutely spot on. I can't I can barely tell a difference. Sometimes it was like, we'll play this part softer, we'll play this part louder, so it's like, okay, they're going for level changes more or less.
Yeah.
But they never had to like restart because of a mistake, and I should preface that as like, nothing was ever because like there was a mistake. It was always like they just wanted the sound to be different, or bring out a certain section a little more.
Packs. That's so cool, man.
Oh yeah, and so they do all these chunks, and then later in editing they'll splice the whole thing together. So when you're listening to an album, you're not listening to them playing it all the way through back to front like you would at a concert. Like it's actually a mixture of several recordings throughout the day of whatever that song is. And they're picking out like the best levels and whatnot. And then for certain things, in one of the pieces they actually have an air raid siren, and one of the percussionists brought in an air raid siren. He actually brought in two air raid sirens. Which was the crazy part. When it got to that, we're like, we're all like ooh and ahhing, up in the balcony, and and they're talking about stuff. It's like, well, what, that air raid thing doesn't sound right. Let's hear the other one. You're like, the other one,
the other one.
So he basically had a small electric one.
Yeah.
And it sounded like it was very, very whiny and very high pitched. All air raid sirens kind of have a high pitch tone, but this is extremely high pitch. He's like, okay, and he goes like back behind his stuff, and he brings out like this big cantankerous thing, and it's one of those crank ones.
Oh
and
my
so
God.
he starts cranking it up like, like what? And surprise, it didn't super surprise me that this was going to happen, but it's so loud that it's like, okay, the guy in the master control room is like, okay, you know what, that thing's way too loud, we're going to have to record a separate track for that. Let's not having it with the rest of the orchestra, we'll record it separate.
Let's put him in the booth down the hall.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put him in the booth. That's exactly what happened. So it's like we go through like and all the songs kind of go this way, and so we go through like the first half of the morning, and then right before lunch we're watching the percussion guy. They're like, okay, we're gonna do the percussion guy now, and so he brings back out his air raid siren, and he records it all by himself, and gets that full sound, and then they'll mix it in later. And again, that's just like seeing the process was super, super cool. Man. And this goes on throughout the entire day. So there's a morning session, and we had lunch. They actually have like a nice little cafeteria and had some rice and curry there. It was actually pretty good. And then there was a second orchestra session in the afternoon, and then we broke for dinner. And that was basically run to the nearest convenience store, because the orchestra actually ran over a little bit. And so the evening session was going to be choir, so we only had like an hour and a half. So we kind of like ran. Some of us ran as a little group to a little quickie shop and got some like Swedish meatball thing. Yeah. And then ate and came back and then listened to the choir. And again, it was 100-person choir, and just like boom, it's hitting you. Just the raw power of the human voice, and and
I can feel it now just thinking about it. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
A choir of that size just hits you right in the fucking soul.
Yeah, and that's the only way I can really describe it. I mean, it's one of those, like, it's so hard to describe the feeling. It's one of those you really have to like be there to fully experience it. But so here in the orchestra, but then they started rotating us into the master control room, like throughout the day, like they they're kind of being a little picky about not letting people in there, so to speak. Sure. But by the end of the day, I think they became more relaxed. As we were being very respectful, and we were a fantastic group, I would say, because we were barely making any noise, and they didn't have to like give us a look or anything. throughout, so which I think ease tensions, and they let us
I have
in
to say the people that are going to spend like that kind of money kickstarting that thing really appreciate that process, and you already fucking know, like unless you're some spoiled brat, like not to fuck around.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because that's the thing. Like if we made noise and they had to re-record, that not that it would cost more, but again, time is money, and the orchestra is only booked for a certain amount of time.
It's a big deal.
It's a big thing, and I don't know if union is the right word, but basically, they're under contract, if they go over their time, suddenly, the composer, or whoever it is, has to start paying more for that overtime,
and they get in trouble. Yeah, it's you're kind of understating it. It's a real big deal. Like anytime they have to stop and re-record, that's not related to, like you said, like let's do different dynamics here, let's do different dynamics there. Usually when they have to stop like that, it's because the entire track just got ruined. Yep. And there's no splicing that together. Like you have to start over. And that's a really big deal. So I think you're exactly right. I think you guys being very respectful, all of you that were there, I don't want to say guys, but everybody there was very respectful, and you were allowed to do that, which is pretty rare from my understanding. Especially I think for that size group, like you always might have like friends and family of the composer. Like funny enough, his mom was there. She was a riot. Oh man, she was like telling stories about him, kind of like his moms do, Well, it's good to know if I ever got famous, my mom would have done the same shit.
Exactly. So that was kind of like a little side treat, being able to talk to her and hear her stories of Chris's younger. But then being able to go to the master control, because the thing is like we had heard some of the tracks they were recording earlier in the day, so you could kind of piece it together in your head a little bit. But in the control room, they were using they had the orchestra track playing, and the choir was singing basically over top of that, and so they're not, I wouldn't say mixing it live, but they were kind of prototype mixing it.
That kind of shit would
in
make
the booth.
Me cry.
Like so you were able to hear like the whole thing kind of being put together as is, and it was like, ooh, like that just that just sent tingles down my spine at that point.
That kind of shit makes me tear up, man. Like it's just like, oh my god, like it's so hard to describe, like until you've actually been there and seen and heard and felt it. But like something like that,
you were feeling in the control room, because I think I posted a picture of it. Like
you did.
It may be hard to see, but I think
no, you absolutely did, and that's where I was like, "Yo, you gonna get kicked out?" I think I commented that on your thing.
It was like at that point, it was the end of the day, and if I got kicked out, like it was a day well worth it. At that point, I was like, "I'm gonna sneak a picture of this place because this thing is intense." And if you look at if you can see the speaker, I think it's like right behind the console. Yeah. There's three of them up there, basically kind of up against the glass partition, and those are 800-watt speakers, like intense. They're just pumping out sound.
Wow.
And so like I said, you're literally like you can feel the orchestra when we're in, or orchestra, even the choir in the room, but when we switch to the control room, it's like we're still feeling it, even though digitally. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Wow, man. That just sounds like such a great trip, and I said this prior, and I still mean it, man. Like I'm so happy that you got to go, and do that, just because like again, there's very few people that I can relate to. Granted, it's your fault that you gave me my first hit of video game soundtrack Heron. But like you're one of those few people that can really appreciate what goes into creating music. And I mean, even, being in the band that we were for years, like it's a process that until you've been through it and until you've created music, it's hard to describe to somebody, but you can appreciate the effort that goes into it. And then when you see, an orchestra or a composer, you can absolutely appreciate the abstraction of scale. Writing for 10 different instruments of different styles, and just It's hard to describe, but I'm really glad you got to go and experience that, because that is really, that's like a once in a lifetime thing, man. It's like you said, some people
It
got
absolutely is,
Disneyland
yeah.
and you had that. So god damn, that's wicked cool, dude. It wow, kind of makes the next part of this nowhere near significant. um yeah, after London, when you got home and recovered from jet lag, have you been playing any games, or have you just been sitting in your chair and reliving your trip?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's just, again, even talking about it now, I still can't believe it happened, type of thing. It was just
Sure.
like one of those like magical dreams. It's like, was it real? It's like, oh yeah, it was. It was so awesome.
Yeah, dude. I feel that way about like the orientation day of my job to this day, and it's been almost, like, I'm not even kidding. It's been over 6 months, and I'm like, I wake up and I go to work and I'm like, am I really working for this place? Like,
Yeah, it's probably, yeah, it's like that similar kind of feeling. It's just like, no way.
like I actually did that.
But yeah, I've been getting back, back into the cycle, like, because again, because it's 5 hours ahead, jet lag. I was getting up early, but then it was like getting to my usual like time that I usually play at night, and I'd be like,
Oh yeah, dude.
but yeah, so starting to get back into things, still doing World of Warship, and actually, I've jumped back into Star Citizen.
That's all right. So I've been on the fence about this. Not gonna lie. I've been a little flirty with my wallet, and I've been dying to play a good space game. I got a really, good beefy PC nowadays. What is it worth getting right now?
So right now it's on 3.8.1, I think is what it is. So it's still alpha state, still very buggy. So know that, if you're looking to put down now, you're coming into a game still in progress. But it is gone leaps and bounds. Now, I've always kept a watchful eye on Star Citizen, but I stopped playing about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now, I think was when the last time I kind of popped my head in. And that was around, when they had Arena Commander, and I think they had just released Star Marine, which is the FPS portion.
Oh, wow.
After that, it was like still super buggy way back then. Like hyper buggy, compared to now. So they've actually, it's actually nice to see like, oh man, they made a lot of progress. So they have a persistent universe it's only one system, a couple planets, but you can kind of warp around right now. There's quite a handful of ships you can actually, that are live, that are playable.
Right.
Which is also nice because a lot of them I hadn't actually seen in person. I think, again, I'd seen like things through like YouTube videos, whereas I kept an eye on things. Sure. But actually being able to like walk around them physically now, or I say physically, but you know what I mean, is actually kind of cool for me. So it's made kind of jumping back in a little bit worth it. Right. Now that being said, persistence is just on the horizon. I think when they introduce 3.8.2, persistence will go fully live. So everything you buy in game will be maintained on your account. Now, they could still wipe your economy, so they're still balancing things and whatnot. So they could wipe your credits, but if you buy something like a gun or another ship, in universe, it will be kept in your inventory for now. Now, sure. Again, I don't know if that will carry over when they go to actual live. But again, it allows for it's like if you start putting an effort now, it's like you'll at least be rewarded and be able to keep whatever you're getting, at least right now in the alpha state, which right. Again, another good thing. They got a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. So I think when 4.0 arrives, I think in the next quarter or so, they're going to be putting in the prison system. So the idea is when you get a bounty on your head and you're arrested, you're going to go to prison. So, but part of the prison sentence is, you go down and mine rocks and serve, your quote unquote sentence, and then you're freed. Wow. So that'll be interesting. Or if your div mates want to try, they'll be able to, do a jailbreak and try and break you out. And I think you still maintain your bounty on your head when you do that, but it means you don't have to go mine rocks for a little bit.
Interesting.
So again, very cool stuff is on the horizon. Talking with even some of my viewers, the question is always asked, like, it's like, should I put down on Star Citizen yet? And like, for me, like it was a hands down, like, I got to go for this way. We're not, I started in 2012, so it's been 8 years. I've been following this thing
long time.
And back, and so some people are probably already bought 8 years and it's not a live game yet. Well, here's the thing, and I remind everyone of this: when a AAA game comes out, like, via E3 or whatever, it's basically in like the last year, if maybe 2 years before it's about to release.
7 years to get there.
Yeah, like World of Warcraft took 8 years alone to develop before it went, to a live state. And again, I don't think it was advertised until like, 6 months to maybe a year before it came. So, take that in context, because with Star Citizen, we're seeing a stem to stern, transparent development cycle from the whole thing. And, a lot of people like to scream like, oh, it's a scam or whatever. Like, like we're getting stuff out of this. Like,
it's a fair... I'm going to say that now that you've put it that way, I would say it's a very fair categorization. Is that this is probably the first time that people have been brought into, in a broad fashion, into an alpha stage. That normally, only developers, friends of the family, etc., QA actually get to witness. We normally don't see it until a game's been 6 or 7 years in development. So that's
like other games, when they say alpha, it's really a beta state, and when they say beta, it's really a this is your minimum viable product, and we're stress testing to make sure it works. Testing final functionality. Whereas with Star Citizen, I would say it feels more bordering on a very early beta at this stage, even though they're still calling it an alpha. It's feeling more and more like a very early beta from other games, because it does have some decent stability. Like, the servers occasionally crash, and you'll lose your daily whatever progress you made within the last couple of hours or whatever. But for the most part, like the player universe is functioning. They got friends list working. Like, back in the day, like there was no friends list. It was kind of a very much like, here's my server code, type it in, and we got to synchronize your key turn, and maybe we can get into the same instance.
Right.
So again, they've come a long way in the past couple of years.
So I guess my question on that is going to be, basically, do you feel that this is something worth investing in? Like, this is a game that when it releases, it's gonna be worth the wait.
I'd say you're probably asking the wrong person, because my answer is already yes.
I say this because you are, I don't want to say picky, but I'm very selective. Yeah, I'll admit to that. There are very few games that you will get really jazzed up about and really obsess over. That's usually my job.
Right?
Yeah. And so to hear you, really have followed it for this long, I'll just confess I'm enlisting right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Use my backer code. You get some free in-game space credits.
Oh, fuck. I forgot to do that. Well, it might be too late now. Shit. No, I literally just pressed OK after that part. I'm sorry. But anyway,
you might still be able to plug it in. Yeah, you might be able to plug it in later. All
right, we'll
send it over. You might be able
later. But really, like, what frustrates me with this game is, hands down, this is the game I've been dying to play.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is that I would say No Man's Sky is is getting into an incredible state on its own. So I've been kind of following these two pretty eagerly. I mean, granted, No Man's Sky is well beyond in the development cycle.
Yeah.
But it's one of those, like, I've been sitting on the fence kind of forever, like, you know, is this going to be, you know, worth it? Is it going to beat what they're doing here? Or not beat it. But to me, it's just like, I want this to be good.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that's very much that, like, I want this to be good. I want them to take their time, but at the same time, it's like, I kind of want to play the full-on thing without necessarily crashing. But yeah, I would say it is worth it. Again, for me, it was like, I love the Wing Commander series. I love all the other Chris Roberts games, the Freelancer.
Yeah, me too, dude. Like, we grew up with those.
Yeah,
like, they are some of my favorite games, dude. Hands down.
Yeah, like, and make no mistake, this is still a super ambitious project to get this all working together. But I can see it coming together, and it's like that's where it's starting to explain. And that's kind of like why I've jumped back in. A lot of my viewers suddenly are apparently all closet Star Citizen backers too, because it's like, oh, I'm playing Star Citizen. Like, oh, I have Star Citizen. Oh, I do too. It's like, whoa, geez, we're all
wow, that's really
the closet
funny.
time.
That's really funny because, like, again, you and I, like, we grew up on the Wing Commander series.
Oh, yeah.
And what I've always seen this as is, like, all right, when I heard of this, 8 years ago now, like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Chris Roberts is finally going to make the game he's always wanted to make and that he never had enough time to do. And,
right. Or latitude to do it.
Or the latitude to do it. So I'm interested. I'm gonna check it out. I'm downloading it now.
Yeah, and if you don't pledge, like, they do occasionally do free fly weekends. I don't know.
Pledged. You're talking about other people.
Oh, well. Never mind it. Free fly weekends are still good because they also unlock for even those who've pledged. You can actually fly some of the other vehicles, so you can get an idea of, like, oh, do I want this ship? Or, what role do I want to try and go towards? That's part of what excites me is I say role, but it's very freeform. There's no, it's like, oh, I have to pick.
Yeah, it's glorified freelancer, which I can't fucking wait for.
Exactly. Like, there's no, like, I want to sign up for the, I want to be a bounty hunter. It's like, yep, be a bounty hunter, but you could also be a space trucker at the same time. There's no, like, class you're choosing, like, in the World of Warcraft, or, like, where you're a tank or a rogue or something like that. Like, no, it's like fully freeform, play however you like.
Now,
obviously, the ship that you're flying, you want to have keyed towards whatever profession that excites you the most.
Sure. So now, if you want to play a game to hold you over until that comes out, I would say at this point in time, now that it's been patched and it's been out for a year and a half. Or thereabouts. X4 Foundations has gotten much better than from when I last evaluated it. It has a lot of kind of the same things that they want to do in Star Citizen. Right down to, like, I'll give you a great example of something they implemented last year. Now, I haven't played in a couple months, but I'm installing that as well, because I'm just in the mood to play something like this. One of the things I was able to do last year, like, you got a distress call from, like, a derelict ship, and you could fly your ship over to it, and this one turned out to be empty. And so, like, I was able to get close to it and kind of latch on. And then you can get out of your ship in the middle of space. So, like, I'm in my spacesuit, floating over to that ship, and then I'm literally walking around inside of it. Nobody's there. Okay, I took it.
Nice.
Yeah, it got a bad rap when it first released because, like, every X game, it was just loaded with bugs. And
Yeah, I do kind of remember that. Yeah, like they're very, very, not to say unstable, but buggy. Yeah.
yeah, they're another game that's just equally ambitious, and because of that, you get bugs. But I would say that in the time that they have had to kind of patch this up, it's become a really good game, and it's one of those, like, I highly recommend checking it out while we're kind of waiting for Star Citizen to do its thing. Just because I, like, when I got that eval copy, like, I was able to get in touch with some of the developers, and they have some serious passion for this genre at Egosoft. It's worth checking out. So, all right. So you've been playing that again. Anything else? Sorry, we are sidetracking.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's about been it for now.
Cool. Since we last played, I finished our save point game of the month, the main story for The Witcher 3, first time ever.
Ah, nice.
I put in on the PC version alone about 125 hours. I basically hit up everything I could, tried to get all the question marks, and here's the kicker. I said F you to Gwent. I didn't even play one round of Gwent. I don't want to play Gwent. And that's funny, because like, I'm a card-playing gambler. Nick knows this. I can hit a blackjack table with the best of them. I just had no desire to do it while I was playing The Witcher. Apparently I got the really good ending. I mean, Christ, at this point it's been 5 years. Can I spoil it?
I think you can.
All right, spoiler alert. Like, fast forward 2 minutes or some shit. But no, I got the really good ending where Ciri survives, becomes Empress of Novigrad.
Oh,
Not Novigrad. Christ, Nilfgaard, and basically the best outcome you could get. Now, granted, I cheated a little bit because I wanted to know what that was, because one of the biggest complaints about The Witcher 3, and I recommend if you really want to, like, if you're out to get a good ending, look this up first. It kind of tells you the choices you have to make in very specific quests in order to get that. And it's like, you have to do like 3 out of 5 things, and it's just not obvious because it's such a gray game. There's no black and white. You'll think you're doing the right thing. And,
oh, yeah.
And you're not. But I would argue that the other ending might be equally good. Just because this ending almost made me cry. Because Geralt and Ciri, like, after, especially if you've seen the Netflix series, which was amazing.
Yeah, I gotta watch that. I heard.
Oh
so
my
good.
God, dude! Like, seriously, go watch it. Like, Amber, it took me a while to convince her, like, sit down and watch this, and now she's like, God damn it, we gotta wait a year for season 2. And like, we've already talked about doing a rewatch. Like, it's fantastic.
Nice.
And if you needed something to help you really get into wanting to play The Witcher 3, that's the thing to do it. Because it's basically the first and second book, and the books take place before all of the games. So basically, you'll have enough of a foundation watching Season 1 that you'll get like 98% of the references that are made in The Witcher 3, and it just makes it... It takes an already amazing game and makes it that much better. But yeah, it was phenomenal. I would say it's my favorite game of the past 10 years. And I'm working my way through Hearts of Stone now. And then I'll move on to Blood and Wine. On a retro front, I'm working on finishing my playthrough of Quest for Glory 4 Shadows of Darkness. Still one of my favorite games. It was like a Quest for Glory to go into a very Lovecraftian bent, and it was a Sierra game that was a mix of adventure and RPG, and it's a 5-game series. And I'm actually excited to play the 5th one because I haven't played it since I played through and beat it, and I was in high school at the time. So I'm very excited to get there. But Quest for Glory 4 is still my favorite. It's a very dark game. You can get the whole series on GOG for like $6.
Nice.
And Quest for Glory 4 is fully voice acted, like front to bottom. And if you played Sierra Adventure games, it includes the narrator. Like when you look at something, it'll be like, that rock is covered in goo. And the person saying that is John fucking Rhys Davies. So,
is it really?
Yes.
Ah.
And he narrated the entire game. When we talked to Lori and Corey, I asked them about that, and they had said, like, he is just, the nicest guy, and basically hinted, yeah, we handed him basically an 8,000-page script.
Oh, man.
Something along those lines.
Doesn't he hate that? Like, wasn't there something about, like, the Wing Commander series where you, like, ended up hating it so much because they had to do all the different, variations?
And his thought in the Wing Commander series was, I didn't fucking learn my lesson in Quest for Glory 4. If I remember correctly, that's the quote. So yeah, I've been playing that, and I've actually been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV thanks to Travis's group, the RPG Kingdom. They got me into that. Yeah, I'm like level 31. I'm having a lot of fun with it. One of my favorite things so far, I like the story. It feels like this would have been a great Final Fantasy game, and it just happens to be multiplayer. It's slow paced, obviously. It's a little grindy, but to me that's what a good Final Fantasy game is. And the story is the story's good enough to keep me moving, keep me doing quests and exploring this world. So I really dig it. But my favorite thing aside from that is the crafting. The crafting in this reminds me a lot of EverQuest 2. If you take the EverQuest 2 crafting system and take it up another notch. If you remember EQ2, like you had crafting skills. And like when you were crafting something, it wasn't just hit it, craft it. It was like you had to use a skill to help this and a skill to help that or to counter this. And it's very similar. Whereas like you have a skill that'll raise the quality. Could make it a special item. But then that takes down durability. And you'll need a skill to raise the durability. But you only have, X amount based on stamina that you can do. So it's kind of it factors in your current skill.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the techniques that you use. And it makes it a game in and of itself. And I love it. It makes it a very fun diversion to the main game. Like, crafting is usually, like, let's face it, in an MMO, it's usually not all that intriguing. You're just doing it to get to the top of the tier and sell shit.
Right.
But in this, it's actually, like, there's actual quests, and it feels like an equal accomplishment to adventuring. And I think it's a masterstroke on their part. I like it a lot. Alright. Let's move on to release highlights, because my cold is making me lose my voice. The Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC hits this Tuesday on the Xbox.
Oh wow, that was fast.
Yeah, it's a Rewind. My wife can't wait to play it, so I'm excited for that to come out. The release we talked about last time, Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners on VR. I had mentioned I had bought it. I had played it a bunch since then.
Yeah, I like it.
It's fantastic. It's a great. It's one of those VR games like Asgard's Wrath where you can sit and you can play it for a couple hours. Like, it's not one of those dopey experiences. It's a survival game. And, like, there's crafting. And you have to, like, sneak out into the city of New Orleans and gather materials and avoid the Walking Dead. And if you run into them, like, I went into the city armed with a screwdriver. And, like, every item has, durability. So it's like you can't just go start stabbing everything. You have to, like, really pick your battles.
Are you John Wick? Kill people with a pencil.
I could, actually. With the screwdriver, like, I remember jabbing it into a zombie's head. And then you have to really, like, yank it out. Otherwise, you're...
Oh, really?
Yeah, or you're going to lose it. So it's quite cool. I highly recommend it. The story's great. The atmosphere, especially as it gets closer to nighttime. Like, once it gets... Like, you have a watch on you, and it beeps when it's, like, halfway to nighttime. And that's, like, kind of your cue. Like, if you don't want shit to get really real, like, you better sneak your ass back to your boat so you can get to where your bus is at that you're basically living out of this bus in like a little fortified area in the cemetery where like the Laveau tombs are and all that, and like all those mausoleums. But if you're caught out at night, man, those fuckers come out en masse, and it's hard to see, and it's creepy as shit. It's good. It's worth a buy. It's a lot of fun. Even if you're like, I'm not a fan of the TV show at all. I watched like the first season and kind of started halfway through the second and gave up. But the game,
I enjoyed the first season, but yeah, like almost by the second season, I was like, "Oh, this is going on a direction that is like
exactly."
whoa.
Yeah, and I was the same. I was the same as you. I was like, not my thing. But the game is great. I highly recommend it. So that was the release highlight. But now, let's get to the news. And I'll say this in the full disclaimer: I sound like shit, but I do not have coronavirus.
That's good.
But however, we are a week away from PAX.
Oh yeah.
I'm very excited, but starting to get a little nervous because as of yesterday, Sony withdrew from PAX East. They will not be making an appearance on the floor. And then today, Square Enix withdrew all the Final Fantasy XIV booths, and basically their appearance is gone.
Yeah, so to clarify, like it's the people flying in from basically Japan are canceling. So they had a panel and some signing that was going to happen, but they will still have demos up at their booth. So they'll have more local personnel, doing that at their booth. So you'll be able to play Final Fantasy 14 and see the stuff, but they will no longer have their content in terms of like again additional panels and the signing. And I don't know what Sony. I think Sony had a panel plan too.
Yeah, I look at it this way. Yeah. They can cancel the whole thing by next week. Me, you, and Kyle, we'll just go show those Bostonians how to drink.
That's right.
And you can drive us. Or
I'll be the designated driver, and
you'll be the designated Uber caller.
Drink some sarsaparilla.
Oh man. Yeah, so it's getting real in that sense elsewhere in the world, and obviously our thoughts go out to everybody dealing with this right now. There's a couple more cases in the U.S. There's actually one in Boston.
Yeah, I think it was like one was detected. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. I mean, like when I was flying in from Heathrow, like there's a lot of like questioning that they never took like temperature reading to like my head or anything like that, because I think some airports are doing that. They're they're running like temperature detectors.
You realize
Heathrow never did it.
We're fucked when we come back from Boston then.
maybe who knows? I mean, here's the thing: like, we could very much get the usual pox. That's always a thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm going to be, running my usual, make sure, basically I have a protocol when I go to cons, and it's more or less, it's kind of helped me in almost all of them that I've gone to recently. I went to, PAX East last year, no problems.
I'm listening.
Yeah. So the key here is have a personal gel bottle of whatchamacallit?
Sanitizer.
Sanitizers, thank you. I was trying to think of like the brand, whatever, but yeah, basically have your own, thing of sanitizer every time you touch a demo console. Immediately afterwards, wipe down. Like, don't feel bad about it. Like, don't you might feel like you're replaying Monk or something, or just that OCD is like be OCD about it at the con. Like, do not be afraid to do that. So you touch computer, especially because you're at demo stations or controller or whatever. Immediately afterwards, boom, put on the sanitizer. Obviously, don't touch your this is always the thing, like don't touch your face, hands, or any not hands, but your face at all after touching anything. So it's like get in the habit of just like make sure you sanitize first, and then if you have an itch on your face or something, then scratch it.
So VR is out.
Well, hands down, I've always avoided the VR just because I have heard of horror stories, both at like PAX and other ones where like people get pink eye.
Yeah, okay, none of that.
And, as much as I wanted to try VR before I, finally broke down and got my headset, I simply would not do it. Like that's where I draw the line. It's like, yeah, sure. Call me chicken shit. I don't care. It's like, I'm not walking away with pink eye. Yeah. Like I'm not stuffing my face into saying. And the thing is, like, if you've been to any kind of con before, that there's always kind of like a slight smell, and then you just like nerds are all sweaty and hot, because apparently they haven't exercised before, and now they're sticking their face, sweaty hot face into a VR mask, and they don't necessarily wipe them down between sessions, and that's just nasty in itself. And then some people just have no hygiene. It's like, please, people, for the love of everything, take a shower every day.
Yeah.
Take a shower multiple times a day if you have to. Go back to the hotel room and refresh yourself. Put on some deodorant. And, for God's sakes, wash your hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hands down, is like now with VR, usually you'll have a demo screen set up so you can actually see what other players are doing. So I'll let the youngins, do their thing, and I'll get a feel for the game. So like, I think it was 2 years ago or whatever, I saw, I Expected You to Die, the James Bond, escape, game, which is completely awesome. I saw that at a demo, both like, okay, I see how this game is playing. I'm really interested in it. It really interested me as a VR game. And when I finally got VR, I was like, oh yeah, I should try this out again. That's so great. You'll be able to get a feel for what the game is trying to get across. And if obviously it interests you, then play it in the comfort of your own home, or a safer VR environment of like a friend's house or something, when they've bathed and don't have the risk of pink eye. That's the biggest thing. More or less, I'm not really meeting. I'll meet some viewers and whatnot. If you're really paranoid, you can just do like fist bumps instead of handshakes. Like they actually recommended that. It's like 3 or 4 years ago when like the last virus thing was going around. It wasn't bird flu. It was whatever. I keep wanting to say H1N1, but that's that game, isn't it? A game is called H1N1.
That is the game. Yeah. No. I
So there was some other thing that was going around. And, people were a little scared about that. And, it's like nothing wrong with just doing like fist bumps or even aerial fist bumps where you never make contact if you want.
Good advice.
If you want to take it to the next level, I do sometimes see people walking around with masks on. Like if you're really concerned, like masks won't prevent you. I say masks isn't like
they don't prevent coronavirus. Like it goes right through it.
Yeah, the dentist mask is like that's more for like if you're sick, put that on in front of you from like spraying stuff into the air type of thing.
Yeah,
it might slow down. It won't prevent, but it might prevent you from like. Getting it directly, take that as you will. I've seen the extreme of like people actually wearing full on, not oxygen masks, but like air filter masks.
Mobile suits.
Yeah, for like it's like those worker masks, like for working like dusty environments type of thing.
All right, well that's fair. I'll get my supplies.
But yeah, like the biggest thing you can do, and then there's a supplementary. Get a good night rest. It's like, it's PAX. You want to, be up all night. Like for me, I'm not much of a partier, so I don't really go to, the late night parties or whatever. Usually, like after the day's done, I'll do my dinner and then I'll crash back at the hotel because my feet are usually dead by that point. I just want to get off my feet. Yeah. Call me an old man. But that's what I do.
I'm getting fucking old, dude. I feel you.
So, the supplementary is get a good night rest. Make sure you eat. Again, Al knows me. I'm very much the prepper. So I always kind of like, I'm getting hungry. It's time for lunch.
Yeah.
For, maybe more youngins in the crowd.
He says it, it's
like,
let's go find Ty.
Bad time. We get 5 stars. Burn the virus out. So make sure you eat. Usually I'll take some energy bars with me if it's a case of like, I'm doing something and I can't, necessarily eat right away. But I'll do like an energy bar thing to just like carry me over until I can actually eat something. Obviously canned food is not necessarily bad, but it's greasy, it's
And way
fatty, so it's
expensive.
not necessarily the most healthy. You can take it to the next level of trying to eat healthy. It can always help, but usually I'll just eat whatever's available, and
I have
fine.
a free pass. I've been doing the ultra low carb diet where it's like
There you go.
below 30 carbs a day. I've been doing it since January like 2nd, I think, and I'm already down like 25 pounds.
Nice, dude.
And and it's something I can absolutely stick to because like we found a low carb bread that's like 2 carbs a slice, so I have a slice of that with my eggs.
What magic is this?
Oh, dude, I'll hook you up. And the wife found an incredible recipe for pizza crust. That's a no carb pizza crust that you make with canned chicken and
Really?
cheese and a couple other things. I'll give it to you, dude. I mean, look, it's not like your fucking neighborhood pizza joint, but when
it's something
you can't
different.
go out
But
and have fucking slop pizza that's gonna load you up with carbs, it's delicious.
But I know you like you wouldn't eat it if it was like hot garbage type of thing.
Yeah,
so
fuck no,
I'm intrigued.
It's delicious. I love it. I'll send you the thing tonight. Like, it's incredible, and it's not hard to make.
Okay, cool.
And then the other thing she got me hooked on, we found a recipe. They're called chaffles.
Chaffles.
It's waffles, but they're made out of eggs, cheese, almond flour, something else. But they're another thing. It's like they're like 1 carb a piece. And
wow. It's just like it's all protein then, huh?
yeah, and it's the same texture of a waffle. It looks like a waffle. You have to have a waffle iron, but it's like the same texture, the same color, and we have this sugar-free syrup that to me just tastes like good maple syrup because maple syrup doesn't have added sugar like the real shit. It has no added sugar, and the stuff you get in the store is all loaded with crap. So this particular syrup just reminds me of maple syrup, and we throw that on there. Or you can make them savory. She'll make them with cheese and jalapenos in the batter. They're amazing. I'll send it to you, but like I said, I've lost almost 30 pounds at this point. And I told her, like, I don't even want this to be a fad. Like, I could eat like this for the rest of my life and be happy.
Nice.
Yeah, good shit. All right, let's see. All right, so that's our news. Speaking of PAX, we'll go to the question of the bye week. We had sent out a question, since we are going to PAX, as the Retro Rents crew, me, Nick, and Kyle, kind of sent out some feelers as to what any of y'all would like us to check out. We did get some feedback in the voicemail, so we'll actually cruise on over to that now, and we'll hear what somebody had to say.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it. Why won't you let me rewind, Google Voice? Why? Here we go.
What's going on, everybody? Yeah. It's Sunday and I'm calling. Hopefully I'm not calling too late. I mean, it's 1 in the afternoon. Hopefully you're doing it a little bit later on a Sunday. I don't know. But anyway, let's hope the call is coming in loud and clear. Beep, 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 beep. Yep.
Google actually.
All right, so let's see. Question of the week. Question of the week. Huh? Right to the basics, huh? You like that? Right to the basics. No goof it off. Just right to the basics. PAX East, huh? Games. I don't even know. But let me just say this. Congrats to Al for he's finally getting to PAX. I know this man's been saying he wants to get to PAX. It's been a dream of his. He's going. Al, that is great. I hope you have the time of your life, sir. I hope it is far and above and beyond anything you could ever imagine. Just don't get sick. And you heard it from me first. Don't get sick. Well, of course you know that, though, but hey, just throw a little bit of positivity your way. Let's put it that way, yeah.
I love you, Fred.
Al, here's what you can do for me. Here's what you can do for old Fred. If you have the power in you, if you could just somehow persuade them, Al, tell them that the crowds want Lolo brought to the Switch in an all-new, brand-new game, high-def graphics, all that beautiful stuff. We want Lolo!
I'm with him on this.
Yeah! Make it happen, Al. Make it happen. I know you can, but anyway, it sounds good.
I'll talk
I don't know. You know what, dude? You go have fun. You look at whatever games you look at. You come back and you tell old Fred what you saw, and you impress Fred. And Fred will just take it all in, and we'll go from there. Because I don't even know what to tell you to look at. I mean, I'm excited for Cyberpunk, but everybody and their brother is too, so that's not like something big. So I don't know, but like I said, yeah, Lolo. Let's do Lolo. I love Lolo. I don't know why I love Lolo. I just love Lolo. Lolo is the best. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I was sick as a dog yesterday. I don't have much energy in me today. I'm still in the recovery, so if I sound a little flat, I apologize. But yeah, I just want to say enjoy yourself, Al. I'm glad you're going. Good for you, and that's all I got. But be good, guys. Have fun at PAX. Hope everybody enjoys themselves. And as always, make sure Arriva brings the turkey to PAX also. Arrivederci.
Oh my God, I love Fred. Arrivederci, Fred. And don't feel bad, Fred. I'm a little flat and sick as shit today, so I'm taking over for you. Yeah, you know what? I am going to ask around, maybe around the indie booths. I would love to find a game even built in the spirit of, what was it, Adventures of Lolo? That was a great Nintendo game.
So, I'm not familiar with this. What game is this?
Let me make sure I'm getting the name right. I think it's The Adventures of Lolo, Lolo. Let me confirm. It's a game I played when I was much, much younger. Yeah, Adventures of Lolo. It was a puzzle game. It was a puzzle game in 1989 by HAL Laboratory for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it was cool.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this now that I'm looking at this. Yeah.
Yeah, 94% of people like this game. This is interesting. Like, I didn't realize it was this. Like, I feel like it's one of those, like, cult games that's really loved by the people that played it. So, I get Fred's enthusiasm. I'm actually pasting the wiki into Discord right now. I played the hell out of this game when I was little. But, I mean, I'm talking. God, I couldn't have been more than 8 years old. I mean, that's when it came out, and I loved it. It was available. Oh, let me see, Fred. Maybe we can help you out here. Do we have a re-release? It was released for the Wii U Virtual Console, Nintendo 3DS. Oh! And then re-released again for the Nintendo Switch Virtual Console in December of 2018. So, Uncle Fred, he's not really my uncle. If you have a Nintendo Switch, you can actually get it in the Nintendo Store, which I'm actually going to do tonight. I loved this game. It's part of the Eggerland series, I think. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, Eggerland series. Absolutely recommend checking it out. It had 2 sequels. And it was, in my opinion, it was kind of, I think it's in the same, like, Kirby universe? Yeah. That's right. I'm seeing the thing now. The game's protagonists have appeared under the monikers Lololo and La 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 in Kirby's Dream Land, and later in its adaptation in Kirby's Superstar, as well as Kirby's Avalanche, where they play an antagonistic role. It's great, though. If you never played it, I'm sure it's not too much on the Virtual Console. It's absolutely worth a grab if you like puzzle games. It was very entertaining for its day. If you want to call the voice line and leave, input or complaints or rave about a game or tell us to talk about something, you can do that at 610-810-1654. And that will bring us to the conclusions, final thoughts, and shout-outs. It has been an episode we have run over, but we have not done this in a while. And I figured everybody would love to hear about Nick's trip. So, Nick, any shout-outs or any events coming up that you would like to promote?
So, again, big shout-out to Christopher Tin for, not only, making the project, but, providing the opportunity for, the backers to go to Abbey Road and see his new album, To Shiver the Sky, which is coming out this year. It's actually debuting by the U.S. Air Force in Washington, D.C. on May 30th. If you're in town, you could always, go out and see that. But I think the album comes out later this year, so keep an eye out for that.
Oh, I will.
I think that's about it. Looking forward to PAX and going from there.
Nice. Yeah, shout out to you, Nick. That was a really great recap of your trip, and it was cool to be able to like share that and see the pictures and stuff as you sent them home. That was really cool. And big shout out to everybody listening. Shout out to Kyle. I can't wait for the three of us to actually hang out in person next week. I think we're gonna have an absolute blast. I know we're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait to go to PAX. And again, big shout out to everybody listening. Shout out to our pals in the podcast community, the everyday gamers, the boys at the Bad Fodder Figures. Although I have to say it, I'm very disappointed in my boy Glovebox, the gifter of my VR headset. He is not going to be at PAX. He had some opportunity to stack. Yeah, the opportunity to stack some more paper, make some more money. So he is not going to show up, and I'm sad. I was looking forward to hanging out with my boy, but it happens. Wow, my voice is like progressively dying. I ended this at the right time. Shout out to Married to the Games, Gabe Patillo, Ed Placencia, and I'm sorry guys, I'm getting sick, so I don't remember the rest of you, but I love you all. You're a fantastic podcast, Married to the Games, check them out. Denny Luce and the gang at Tap the Craft, again, a very great microbrewing podcast, love those guys. And finally, if you want to reach us, hang out with us, tiny.cc/savepoint. Come hang out with us on the Save Point, talk video games, talk anything, answer our questions the bye week, and just hang out. It's a fun place. Email us, theretrorents@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at theretrorents. Me at retrorentsal. Nick is at Black Eagle Ops. And we're also on Twitch under the same names. Check us out. I'm really planning on starting to stream some more, especially now with this headset. I think this will actually work really well.
I mean, you sound pretty good until your voice started to go all frog-like.
Fuck, it's dying. But yeah, I'm going to check that out at some point very soon. And that, as it is, will bring us to the end of episode 54. Yeah, I'm not going to be real poetic. I'm running out of steam. Nick, again, thank you for sharing your trip. And everybody, till next time, have fun, play games, don't be dicks. I'm going to go find something to pour down my throat.
Peace.
See ya.